Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, the place for internet technology professionals whose work-life balance plan has imploded. We are here to provide solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hi, this is Joanne Victoria from AskJoanneVictoria.com. I am the host of the Sanity Project podcast. I interview experts in the areas of health and wellness, self-improvement, spirituality, and mindfulness. The Sanity Project podcast is a platform for experts in the self-help community to share their wisdom, expertise, and solutions that will help the IT pro live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. I'm very excited about our guest today, and I'll introduce him in a moment. But first, I want to give you the name of his website because it's spelled, I like to spell things out so people don't have to guess. The name of his website is THOMMY, S as in Sam, AND as in David, VICK.com. That's ThommySandvick.com. Thommy Sandvick has been a side hustler his entire life, an IT professional since 2009. Like many IT professionals, he simply went into the field because he was viewed as, quote, good, unquote, at computers, and it, quote, unquote, pays well. Now, as a speaker, life on fire coach, and IT professional, he supports other IT professionals and entrepreneurs increase their communication within their industry, reconnect with what they truly want, and set their lives on fire. Thommy is a speaker, life on fire coach, and IT professional since 2009, supporting 18 call centers around the world. And before I invite Thommy directly to the show, I want to give you the 3 words I wrote down that came from my heart and my intuition just before I got on the recorder. One is fascinating, because to me, Thommy is extremely fascinating. And he and I will have a private conversation someday about that. I also wrote another word called star, because I think Thommy is a star, and I seldom call people stars because I just don't have it in me to give away that much. And he's relentless. He never, ever gives up. And I identified with that, but it came out. So I have 3 words about fascinating, star, relentless, or however order you want to put it in. And what Thommy is going to do today for our internet technology professionals is help IT pros use vision, which I'm fond of as well, as a tool to increase influence and communication while simultaneously reducing stress. Welcome, Thommy Sandvick.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and for having me on the show, and certainly for the kind words. Those 3 words actually mean a lot to me, so I really appreciate that.
You're more than welcome. I mean them. I mean, as I said, they came from my heart and my intuition. I just wrote them down, and this is not something I've done before with any other guests. It just, I was compelled.
Awesome.
And I go with it. So
yeah, definitely. Cool. Thank you.
You're a fascinating, relentless star. How's that?
I love it. Definitely.
So what's going on with you today, and how can you help our listeners?
Yeah, well, today was a bit of a challenging day, actually, in the IT world. But I think the main thing is I just thought maybe I'd share a little bit about my story with IT and kind of balancing those stresses and things that come along. How does that sound?
That's absolutely perfect, because I think our audience needs to hear about balance.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I graduated in 2009, and I actually moved from Wisconsin to Orlando to work for Disney because I didn't really know. I had the IT degree, but I never felt all that passionate about it. I really was like, it's there to fall back on, but I'm not sure that that's what I want to do. And so I went down to Disney to try to figure out what I wanted to do. And I actually wanted to, at the time, I was interested in pursuing being a DJ with Disney. And unfortunately, circumstances happened, and I was kind of forced to go out and, I guess some people would say, get a big boy job. And so, or not a Mickey Mouse job if you want to play the pun game. So I went out, I got hired by a home-based company, which was, totally awesome. I was home-based in 2000. I got hired in October 2009. And I started my corporate career as frontline tech support. And everything was fine. It was a relatively small company. A year later, I was promoted. And so that was awesome to be promoted within 1 year to doing systems administration specifically related to our telephony platform, the call system for our agents. And shortly after that, we were actually acquired by a big global corporation who had an established concierge business, but did not have a U.S. footprint. So they basically acquired, in my opinion, they acquired us for our technology and our footprint in the U.S. Because all of our agents were home based. And so, look, life was great. I was 25 years old. I got sent to Sydney to do an implementation. I got sent to Moscow to do an implementation. I mean, things were rolling. And then it all came crashing down. Now, just to take a step back, I went into it going, okay, look, I'll sit back. I'm happy. I'm making decent money for Orlando. I'll sit back and, hey, I'll be loyal. I have no desire to jump around. Small company, intimate relationship with my boss, just in terms of he's a friendly guy, right? And then after the buyout, it just slowly started getting worse. It was, now we have to be on calls with Singapore at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning, getting phone calls at 3 a.m. It was just getting completely out of control. And then the real hammer hit, which was, well, these applications are corporate now, and corporate applications are supported out of Singapore. So you're not going to have a job. And my boss was trying to save me. And what I mean by that is try to finagle the budget a little bit. And I was like, you know what? And then what? What happens the next year? What happens the next time the budget comes around? Like, when is that going to stop? And I was so angry because, number one, I had been giving more of my time. And, time is the number one resource we have, and it is non-renewable, 100%. It's equalized in that we all have the same amount of it every day, and we choose the time that we spend. And to give more time to them, it just hurts so bad to give more of myself and then be on the chopping block. So I said, forget it, and I left. And I quit. I said, I'm going to go independent. I went off and did my own thing. And I ended up coming back as a contractor. That contract position eventually evolved into a regular contract position. Now, my biggest pain point was not being paid for time. It was the salary component that I didn't like. So coming back as a contractor was a great fit for me because of that. And so I was able to, be hourly, great. I was part-time while I still had my business. And then eventually I ended up going full-time again. And it really hurt to have to do that. But I did it because I had some business failures and needed to work through that. So once again, the message is I went back to my pain. I fell back and I didn't move forward. And then last October, after going back and building even more influence, they said it to me again. Well, your whole team, we're going to outsource your whole team, and your position is part of that. And I'm like, wait a minute. So I support all these call centers that had grown to 18 around the world. But in truth, yes, I support all of them, but I primarily support the US because we are 54% of the world's call volume. And I said, wait a minute, everyone's coming to me because I'm the only person who knows anything. Now, I don't want to say that in a negative light. What I mean by that is that there had been a huge amount of turnover, layoffs, people quitting through the course of this buyout. I watched all but 2 of my technology coworkers leave or be laid off. I watched many operations people be laid off. And so quite literally, I was the one with the background who had been doing this for, since 2009, effectively. And I was so upset. Again, fool me once, shame on me, shame on you, right? Fool me twice, shame on me.
Mm-hmm.
The second time from the same company, I was so upset. And so my emails at that point were very confrontational and just, I mean, because I was hurting and I knew I needed to change. I knew I needed a change. And so what's interesting and where it comes around to where I think your viewers can, I'm sorry, your listeners.
They're viewing too.
Viewing too. All right. Yeah. Can reference is like things got really tense and because of my emails, and I realized, so I went on a journey towards personal development. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that IT was not it. I was sick and tired of corporate America controlling my life, sick and tired of just being another expense on a profit and loss statement. Like, it was just driving me bonkers that they were effectively controlling every area of my life because I never knew when I was going to be renewed. I never knew what was in store. But I reframed it. I went on my own journey to find out what I truly love to do. And in that process, I was able to take a step back and look at things from the other person's perspective. When problems came up or requests were made, to realize that these people making the requests of me don't understand because they haven't had the resource to understand. It was a gap, a huge gap. And I said, okay, let's reframe it. And so I was able to, with one email, literally one email to the right person in operations, I was able to highlight the problems, provide the solutions in a way that they understood, in a non-confrontational way. I said, look, I'm giving you the solution. It's up to you guys to determine if you want to take that advice or not. But just changing that conversation changed everything. Mm. And from that, I've been able to, there's a lot of great things that have happened. I've been able to impact the entire organization from an IT support perspective related to the people that I support. And I've been able to, I was actually recently brought into a problem that we had from an area that doesn't even actually, I don't work with that part of the company at all. It's a completely different division of the company. But I was brought in because of a common skill, but most importantly, because my boss said, Tommy's a communicator. And that was huge because it showed me that, hey, I'm really learning how to connect people, be vulnerable with them, but at the same time, just de-escalate and get things done. And that was a big thing. And so because of that change in my way of being, becoming a much less confrontational person, so I guess you could say confident and open, just vulnerable with people to say, hey, this is where things are at, and being solution oriented, they ultimately kept my position. And then I'm slated to go part-time at the end of September. And that's actually what I want because I'm building my business and I'm kind of at a capacity limit right now. Mm-hmm. And so I'm getting what I want. And it's kind of funny because I kind of tried to quit. My boss said no. So of course I always have that choice. They can't actually say no, but it showed me just how much that influence has risen. And that has really come, when things get stressful in that world. And I mean, it really applies for anything in corporations, but in IT specifically, IT, especially when you're talking technical terms to people who are not technical, communication is so key. And most importantly, always asking questions because they don't know how to communicate certain things. So you have to ask the questions to make it clear so that it makes sense from a technical perspective. So those have been the biggest learnings I've taken from the work that I've done on myself and ultimately on communication.
So I'm taking notes here because that's what I do. But I've seen
Yeah.
that you put yourself in the other person's shoes,
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
not something that most, whether I don't want to label the contractor employee situation because that's not even important to this. What's important is how you did this in order to come to a solution for the problem.
Yeah.
Put
Yeah.
yourself in the person's shoes. By doing that, you made yourself vulnerable because you had to open up yourself to that other person's issues,
Mhm.
situation, personality. And then you gave yourself permission to communicate without anger.
Yeah, exactly. And
I'm sure there's more, but I'm trying to get the audience to see the things that they could do, which is what you're helping them see, is what
Mhm.
they can do instead of bitching at their bosses or
Yeah.
trying to quit as you did, because not
Yeah.
everybody side hustle technique or talent as you do or as other people do. They need that job, quote unquote, so they
Mhm.
need to make it work for them. So what else would you say besides putting yourself in someone else's shoes, making yourself vulnerable, and communicating effectively? What else? Give me another one.
Yeah.
If
So
there,
I guess just really focusing, internally, and it's a little bit nicer because because I work at home. I'm not in that office environment, so I can step away or do things to sort of recenter myself and just take a step back and reset. I think the other, um, gosh, it's really just expressing. Okay, so you mentioned earlier in the.
but you just said one that's vital.
Mhm.
When
Yeah.
you step away, you have to
Yes.
back away from the situation in order to see
Yes.
it clearly. Because
Yeah.
once you're so engaged in like the inside of a tennis ball, is that it, or a golf ball?
Hmm.
It's like all intertwined, and everybody's emotions. You've got business, and then you've got emotional / personal side, and
Hmm.
there is no clarity there. There's
Yeah.
nothing to focus on. So I think that stepping back, taking a break from the thing, and you're lucky that you work at home that you can do that, but even at work you can do that.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
They can go to the bathroom for half an hour, nobody's going to bug them. They could take a brief
Very true.
walk. There's always 5 minutes is all it takes. 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I personally do breathing exercises. It's really simple. It's literally just breathing in for 4, holding for 4, release for 4. And it lets the tension out of your body. And that simple technique can do wonders to reset. And I think so what you can do, and what I've done before, is to reset myself. I definitely, sometimes when I do feel that anger, I might write my draft of the email, but then I don't send it until I've done this procedure. There have been times when I've written an email and I did not send it for another 8 hours
Hmm.
because I really wanted to make sure that it didn't come across as attacking or really overly confrontational. And the other thing that you mentioned at the beginning of the show, honestly, I kind of forgot about it. I was kind of caught up in the story. Is we mentioned talking about vision.
Hmm.
So step one is understanding the other person's perspective that you're communicating with. That certainly helps. When you're dealing with working with maybe a superior, right, a boss, um, communication truly is everything. And what that means is you can take the opportunity to open up and say, let's say you're given, I don't know, you have 15 different things coming at you at once. This happens frequently. There's a plague in corporate America called multitasking. And so if you get overwhelmed, going to your superior and saying, hey, I have a question. I wouldn't put it exactly in this term, but the idea is, what's your vision for what needs to be accomplished? So when you get projects or tasks to work on where maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense or there's a lot coming at you, just saying, hey, I want to know what really is the end game. What is it that you want to have happen? And then they they clarify that. You ask questions. Be really clear on what they want. I'll give you an example. Part of the reason why I increased my influence in an organization is because I came to understand the pain point that operations had related to how our agents were taking calls. It was a monetary pain point, and so they were looking at technology to resolve some of that, without having to cut staff. And so that's suddenly when they're coming at me left and right, they want this and they want that and this and that. I began to understand, now I understand the vision. The vision is we need to get the cost per request from this level to this level so that we can increase profitability. That, as an IT professional, a contractor, and a business owner, I understand. So now we can say, okay, you want to get there. So here, get permission. Can I share a little bit of feedback about that? Sure. Okay. Here's the reality of where we are right now. And here's the solution to go from reality to what you need to achieve from my eyes. And it takes a lot of confidence to do that. But that kind of communication where they're talking, you're absorbing, you're getting it really clear, and then say, okay, here's where we're at. Here's, in my opinion, what we need to do. This is the solution. What doesn't work is sitting back behind email, sitting at your desk and complaining about how everything is out and everyone is against you. Basically being in a victim mentality. That doesn't work. It never ends well.
Never ends well anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a big part.
Okay. What I hear you saying is, from my perspective, is ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Find out what they want in the end game. And, why. The why is a great question. Why do you want that? What purpose will it serve? How can it benefit you? How can it benefit me? How can it help the company? How can it help the other contractors? And then in their talking, they will give you the nugget that you're looking for, as they did with this previous situation. They had to read the bottom line. Well, that's easy. Now it's like going to the doctors. Half the problem is knowing the problem. It's that simple. Yet people think that if they just have a lot of busy work, they're effective, and if they give you a lot of crumbs, that you will find the information. You need to get direct response to your questions.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, people just want to know that you care. And I know in an IT environment that can be difficult some days to connect with that. But it doesn't matter if you're talking to a superior who wants you to complete XYZ tasks, or if you're in frontline support and you're talking to an end user about to resolve their issue. They just want you to understand. You take a minute and just say, hey, well, how is it impacting you, or how can I help, kind of thing. And get them they just want to be understood. That's all people really want. This is a basis of communication, and to be connected and feel like other people care. And that's so important. In the industry, so if I was working with a frontline agent, I would say okay, so they're coming at me with 5 different problems, and I'd say, okay, let's start with problem number 1, and just ask the questions, and then and guide through on that, and be very non-confrontational about it.
One of the first things I wrote down, I think it was one of the first things, I've got 3 pages of notes already because I'm a note taker. Employers need to be kind to their employees. Contractors. That to me is vital, and I don't care where you work, how many millions of people you employ. Being kind, actually, it doesn't have to be the big honcho being kind. It's just the next person up.
Yeah, absolutely.
The next person up, because then we'll have the next person up above them, and so on and so forth. Which reminds me of James Spader, who I adore, actor. If you don't know, you can check him out. Who was speaking to some other actor who was just starting out and who was righteous and thought they were right all the time. And he said when he first started in the industry, he had a choice of being right or being kind. And he decided being kind was easier on him and everyone else.
Yeah.
And to me, that's vital to be
Yeah.
kind.
And it builds loyalty. So what happens, like, by doing that, a perfect example there is when I worked at Disney, there was one manager who would go out of his way to walk down and just say, "Hey, thanks for coming to work today." Like, that was
Mhm.
it. That
That's it.
little act had me bending over backwards for that manager. If that manager asked me to stay longer than required, or asked me to go longer without a break, or do a job I didn't like, it didn't matter, because I liked him because he cared and he was kind and he just took
Yeah.
that little extra effort. That's
Yeah.
all it takes to completely shift that conversation, and ultimately that can definitely result in a change in influence in an organization.
Absolutely. Just the simple things, a little
Hmm.
show of appreciation. I think people have forgotten that over time. I don't know why. I don't think, well, we won't look at the headlines in the news because I don't read
Yeah.
them anyway. But as far as you and I are concerned, we want to be kind to others because we know it works,
Hmm.
and it's not an effort. It's just who we are. Presuming that you are kind based on our conversation because you understand that.
That's my
And,
goal. Yeah.
and it's just that people don't have that as part of their nature anymore. It seems to have gone to the bottom of the list. And it's disturbing.
Yeah, it's kind of this thing where you're not born that, you're born, you're this little bundle of joy, and you have unlimited potential, and all these things, and then over time you start to have experiences that happen to you that that kind of frame some of those things, and it's just a lot of people just have been beaten up,
Yep.
in one way or another, not necessarily physically, but you get the world imposes beliefs on you. You're taking in 2 million bits of information every second through your five senses, processing them through your sort of internal representation system, your beliefs, your experiences, and then you actually retain 128 bits out of that 2 million. And so,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, 134. So when you realize that that's what's going on with people, that allows you to understand the other person's view. Just think about that. And that concept alone is actually really what changed everything, was just understanding that.
Well, at some point in time, I'm going to have you back as a guest because I know you're going to go on
Yeah,
another adventure soon,
I am.
and I know it. Something is big is going to happen. It maybe not big, but important.
Yeah.
And what can you give to our listeners right now as a last tip, as a last note, is something for them to remember?
Yeah, I think it comes back to my true core belief, and the reason why, although we've been talking about IT, I'm moving into coaching, I'm moving into speaking. At my core belief, it's that if you're working too hard for not enough money, or if you're stuck and just not feeling happy, it doesn't have to be that way. You can go on a journey. You can just start with a book, and things start opening up, and you find your true calling. And a lot of people like IT. That's great. But everything for me is, does what I'm doing feed my family, feed my soul, and feed my ego? Meaning, do I like it?
Mm-hmm.
And everything I do is through that lens. If it feeds my soul and not my not my family, the answer is yet. Because when you follow what you truly love to do, the money follows because you impact others. So
Right.
that's really my core takeaway is, and for those who stay in IT and are enjoying it and want to be in corporate America, awesome. We need it. Certainly in the world, we need IT. And so you can create such an awesome positive impact on the organization, still ruled by working on yourself and
Always.
coming from that place, coming from kindness, understanding the other side, and you can make a huge impact.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I want to make sure our listeners they're probably listening to you on iTunes. And if they are, I want them to provide you with a written review, a glorious written review for a fascinating
Thank you.
star, for a fascinating, relentless star. And I would also appreciate if the listeners would give the podcast a 5-star review, because I was lucky enough to have Thommy Sandvick as a guest. I thank you, and until next time, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to AskJoanneVictoria.com and continue the conversation on her podcast page. And get a free copy of her book, The True Self Handbook, a guide to transform your life. That's AskJoanneVictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.